Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics. So October the 4th is a very interesting anniversary for Britain when it comes to political extremism. It is the day in 1936 when people in the East End of London, sick of themselves and their neighbours being demonised by the fascists of Oswald Mosley at the time, decided that enough was enough and they weren't going to let the British Nazis march through their town. So they came out in huge numbers, potentially hundreds of thousands, to stop them, and stop them they did. Let's remind ourselves of how fascism operated almost 90 years ago and how its return is affecting us today in 2025. But first, for daily news and politics, please click the subscribe button to stay notified. So Oswald Mosley didn't invent fascism, but he certainly tailored it for British high streets, didn't he? He found fertile ground in a Britain reeling from the Great Depression, where broke veterans struggled, wages were slashed, newspapers screamed about global plots. Sound familiar? And to continue the parallels with today, people were disillusioned with traditional political parties. A deep sense of instability hung heavy in the air. Mosley swooped in, offering what seemed like a simple answer. A corporate state run by a strong man who could just get things done. Oh, they all mess about. They're just messing about. They're making excuses. We just need someone who'll just bang their fist on the table and get things done. He dressed this vision up with all the theatricality of a showman, the open-top cars, sharply tailored uniforms, torchlit rallies that felt like a weird hybrid of a cup final celebration and a military parade. And his methods were chillingly effective. The first tactic, the big lie. He'd repeat it until it started to sound like common sense. Jews, he claimed, controlled finance and the press, and if you just booted them out, the economy would magically bloom. This wasn't just rhetorical, it was a deliberate strategy to exploit economic anxieties and divert public anger. The second tactic was the uniformed spectacle. Imagine thousands of black shirts marching in lockstep, their very presence designed to turn unease into fear and fear into compliance. They adopted a paramilitary style, complete with fascist salutes, of course, projecting an image of militant strength and unity. Then there was the scapegoating, given a local postcode. It wasn't some abstract enemy, it was the Jewish shopkeepers in Hackney, blamed explicitly for rent hikes through leaflets handed out right on their doorsteps. The target was specific, tangible, designed to ignite local resentment. The fourth tactic, physical control. Mosley's Biff Boys, thuggish bodyguards, later expanded into the black shirts, weren't just for show, they were there to eject hecklers from rallies, often violently, creating an atmosphere where dissent was swiftly and brutally suppressed. Editors watching this unfold soon learnt to practice a little bit of self-censorship. But here's the thing about Britain, pushes back. In 1936, the people of the East End, Stepney tenants, Irish dockers, Jewish ex-servicemen, socialists, formed an impassable human wall on Cable Street. There were other flashpoints as well, but Cable Street became the most famous. They shall not pass, they chanted, and Mosley, despite police efforts to clear a path, didn't. That defeat, which was a powerful symbol of grassroots unity against fascism, made headlines, but it also directly led to the Public Order Act of 1936. This landmark legislation banned political uniforms and curtailed marchers, effectively neutering some of the British Union of Fascists' most potent public displays. Then war came, Mosley was locked up, and the story you might have thought froze in black and white photos. But no. I mean, there have been attempts to revive fascism since. I'm not going to try and suggest that it disappeared for like whole generations. But the efforts of the likes of the BNP and the NF were always on the fringes. They never looked like winning power or political influence. But in 2025, with fascism also rising in allied countries, just as it was in the 1930s, we're facing another big inflection point. Mosley's name might be dust, but his methods, they're still walking around in full colour. Let's have a little look at matching the chapters, old versus new, and see how really nothing has changed. So the first one, the big lie 2.0, you might say. Back in 1934, the British Union of Fascist paper Action screamed that 300,000 Jewish refugees threatened British jobs. Fast forward to today, a few things changed, but not much. We hear about 4 million migrants or 5 million Turks when, Turkey was tipped to join the EU, which it was never going to. The specifics are different, but the maths is still pure fiction. It's the same old tune, just with new lyrics. WhatsApp groups, Telegram channels, Facebook forums are now pumping out notes of official figures that no one can ever source, creating echo chambers of misinformation. The algorithms that are designed to keep us scrolling favour outrage, pushing these unverified claims to wider audiences. A share becomes proof, even if it's complete fabrication. Like the false claims about the Southport murderer being a Muslim immigrant that fueled recent riots. This online ecosystem allows far-right actors to amplify those messages and mobilise people very quickly, often leading to real-world harm. And no matter how many times the fake news is exposed, the people who fell for it fall for the next one. Then you've got the uniform, but without the shirt, right? So black polos were outlawed, yes, sure. But modern crews are clever. They've adopted colour-coded dress. You've got like your all-black trainers, matching face masks at anti-migrant protests in Dover, or high-vis vests at like Free Tommy marches. These outfits are legal, they're photogenic, but when you've got like several hundred men moving as one block, the effect is still chilling, isn't it? It's a visual display of strength and unity, a subtle yet powerful intimidation tactic that sidesteps the letter of the law. And if they can't coordinate their clothes, they just arm themselves with flags instead. It's all designed to give that same paramilitary feeling. Today's knuckle draggers can't be trained to march in lockstep, of course, but they can still be corralled into an intimidating force. Then you've got that scapegoating on a postcode still. So instead of Jewish landlords, we now hear Romanian tenants cram eights to a flat. Instead of foreign saboteurs, it's Muslim grooming gangs. The template remains exactly the same. There's nothing original about Nigel Farage or Tommy Robinson. You take a genuine social ill, like housing shortages or rising crime, and you staple it to an ethnic group. Then you promise expulsion or harsh measures as a silver bullet. Council estates, often feeling the squeeze of underinvestment and neglect, become fertile ground for this rhetoric. Basically, what we're saying is, in any age, poverty, deprivation feeds fascism. Someone offers a name, an other, to blame for complex problems, diverts attention from systemic issues, the real root causes. Then you've got your street theatre. Mosley's Olympia rally had stewards cracking skulls, a brutal display of force. Today's version often begins as a Facebook event, innocuously marked as peaceful protest. But inevitably the bottles fly, violence erupts. Organisers then shrug their shoulders and say, well, we can't control everyone, can we? Yeah, it's funny how there's always violence at your rallies though, isn't there? Not everyone else's. The footage of the clashes, however, of course, then hits Telegram and other platforms. And then it leads to a jump in recruitment. Violence in this twisted logic becomes not a bug, but a feature, a recruitment tool. Recent events like the riots triggered by misinformation after the Southport stabbing demonstrate how online narratives can quickly escalate into physical confrontations, with far-right agitators using messaging apps to coordinate and spread their extremist views. The 1936 Public Order Act still stands, a testament to its enduring relevance. Political uniforms remain banned, but modern groups just adapt. They exploit the grey zones. It's just a brand, they'll say, pointing to like a Fred Perry trim or something, or a particular colour combination. For prosecutors, proving intent is very tough. Legal bar is quite high, as it should be for something like this. You can't just simply spot a black shirt. Meanwhile, the Online Safety Act of 2023 promised tougher hate speech takedowns and aims to regulate online content, especially for children. Only the legislation was rushed and therefore ineffective. It's not just that powerful emotions drive social media engagement. Some of the key platforms are owned by people who deliberately maneuver the algorithm to artificially amplify further anything which helps the fascist cause. Back in 1936, the government refused to ban the fascist march even when a petition of 100,000 was handed over to the Home Office. But they did pass legislation when the entire community rose up. The problem today is that the victims of fascism are too divided. Mosley failed his divide and rule lessons, didn't he? Because he attacked everyone at once. He became the enemy. Farage and Robinson a bit more cunning. Farage, for example, has demonised many groups in his time, including Jewish people, trade unionists, the unemployed, single mothers, migrant workers, just as Mosley did. But he's refined his pitch to focus more explicitly on one or two groups rather than everyone at once. He focuses now on Muslims and asylum seekers, with some dog whistling against other groups. And he also works to turn one group of victims against another so that they won't unite against him. From the fascists, we have the same tactics playing out. They're like carbon copy with just different phrases, but targeting the same primal emotional responses. The big difference with 1936 seems to be the opposition to fascism. We're too often picking fights with one another, blaming each other when we should be united in opposition against the real enemies, Farage and Robinson. Politics is much more fragmented. Grifters have infiltrated factions all over the place to make sure unity is all but impossible. I cannot imagine a unified community response against fascism today. In 1936, that uprising, there were no personalities. It was just lots of people. There were organisers, but it was just lots of people all coming together collectively. There are too many personalities today. It's too much cult of personality, identity politics, and it's dividing us. You know, in fact, the far right, they waste no time, for example, in laughing at how small the counter-protests are to their main events, such as the so-called Unite the Kingdom rally recently. And little wonder, of the small group of people who did come out to counter-protest it, I heard speeches, some of them very good. A couple of them seemed to forget that they were there at an anti-fascist rally, and they spent their time attacking other anti-fascists. So our best hope is that if people can't unite to crowd them out of our communities permanently, we at least collectively recognise the danger for like one day every 4 or 5 years and at least stop them winning executive power. As they do in France every presidential election, or at least they have so far. But let me know what you think in the comments below. And for more content, you could subscribe to the channel or even join for access to streams and behind the scenes updates. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.